Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Sunday, and I thought we'd start with a look at the tropics because there have been some indications, and we've been talking about this on and off over the last week. And, one of the things I've been pointing out is that weather models like to spin things up in the long range, and most times, like 95% of the time or more, they wind up not being real. So it figures that the one time I emphasize that fact is going to be the one time where the model actually showed something out 14 or 15 days in advance, and it winds up happening. We're not there yet, but I just wanted to give you a look. This is the water vapor loop, and it actually shows moisture in the whole atmosphere pretty much, and we can pick out not only where the atmosphere is moist but also where the atmosphere is very dry. And contrary to popular opinion, yeah, it's humid in the tropics, but when you look at the higher levels, you can see that there's huge pockets of dry air. And by the way, sometimes the water vapor imagery is very useful later in the season. If we start seeing weather systems coming off Africa, sometimes we get Saharan dust from the Sahara that winds up migrating out into the Atlantic, and you can actually pick it out on the water vapor loop, and that is an inhibitor of tropical storm development. But we'll get to that one day if it shows up. But you can see there's a large area of dry air covering much of the tropical Atlantic. Here are the islands, the Leeward and Windward Islands, where we do see some moisture, but much of the Caribbean also pretty dry, as is areas north of Puerto Rico. But here's where we have quite a bit of moisture in the zone in Central America, extending westward across out into the Pacific and into the coast of Mexico. And right in there is where we have what looks like a tropical depression developing on the Pacific side. This spinning system you see out here, that's a strong upper air system. And if you notice, the moisture here is moving fairly quickly from southwest to northeast. So that's an indicator that we've got some strong wind shear going on. Also the same here out in the islands. So if you did have some kind of low-level system moving along, you'd have wind shear issues to deal with. But this entire zone is going to get very active as we go through the week. So with respect to the Hurricane Center's latest forecast, which was just updated, we have, by the way, before I get to that, let me just show you. Come here. Oh, you're going to be camera shy today? Say hi. Kovu's here. He's a little baby boy. He accidentally went out yesterday and spent the evening outside under the deck. But he comes right back in. No matter. Okay, so the Hurricane Center is now indicating that this area here south of the coast of Mexico has about a 90% chance of becoming a tropical depression or a tropical storm over the next 5 days. My more important takeaway for me is the fact that this entire area, you can see all the clouds here running from Panama right up to the coast of South America and then extending northwestward right along the coast, is getting more and more active. And that's probably where we're going to see something come out eventually. One of these disturbances is actually going to bulge northward into the northwestern Caribbean later this week. Here's the latest visible loop of this tropical system, this possible tropical depression that's developing. This is 15 north, 95 west. Looks like there might be a center trying to form in that general vicinity. And it looks like it's moving west or west-northwest, kind of parallel to that coastline. All right, so again, the takeaway is the fact that we're seeing activity there because that's where the models have been signaling it, and that's where it appears to be happening. Now, I'm going to start with the European. This is what the European does with that system off the south coast of Mexico. It does have a closed-off low there tomorrow morning, and then it just kind of straddles it along the coast. But pressures throughout all this area are running low. So whenever you have that, and whenever you have some semblance of higher pressures up to the north across the southeast and back through the central Gulf states, inland, not down in the Gulf of Mexico, but inland in the southeast, that tends to, you have higher pressures further north, so you can have lower pressures here further to the south. That sometimes can be a sign of conditions being are gradually becoming favorable. And as we go through the week, we start to see pressures, pressures basically staying pretty low in that area. And then a low forms on the European on Saturday, right in this corner. Here's the Yucatan Peninsula, Belize, and you've got that low, a little low there that the model straddles along the coast on Sunday. And then on Monday, it's moving it northward and then eventually just pops it off to the west from there for Tuesday. Now, we're getting, this is speculative at this point, very, very speculative, okay? But I think, again, the takeaway should be that all the models are doing something with this. We'll look at the GFS, and you know what? I'm going to put the 10-meter wind up. Now, the GFS is not doing a whole lot with it. It's sort of there. I mean, you've got a closed isobar here. There's some sort of low in this area that moves across Mexico and into the southwestern Gulf, and then eventually finds its way northward. Did I get the? Yeah, this is the surface pressure and 10-meter wind. Okay, good. Somehow, I think I should have gotten a different map. Let me see if this works better. Okay, this I think might show it up a little better. Let me back it up. Yeah, you can see where the low is here. So, there's your low on Saturday in the northwestern Caribbean. Lower pressures here, and then it moves, basically northwestward into the southwestern Gulf over time, and doesn't really do much with it in terms of strength. I'm not even going to go down that particular road. I'm more interested in the fact that we have going to have broad area of low pressures across much of the Northwest Caribbean and Southwest Gulf. That is the climatological area that you would expect development this time of year anyway. So that's a good place to look. And when I was saying about this whole area down here becoming active as we go through the week, just look at the area of precip, the area of rain that's being generated. I'll just back it up starting with Monday. So the entire tropical zone on the Pacific side is getting very busy in terms of convection. So apparently one disturbance comes out of this and moves northwest or northward into the northwestern Caribbean and then eventually winds up into the southwest Gulf. Just for laughs, we'll look at the Canadian model, which is always good for something, some sort of excitement somewhere. Same idea, although it does develop a much stronger system over time and, winds up taking it northward into the Florida Panhandle. This would be by June 20th, okay? Again, I will say this over and over until, I want this to sink in. Do not focus on any specifics with the models at this point and what they're doing. It's really a question of just looking at the general overall pattern. And you know what? When we're sitting here next weekend, we'll worry about something like this if there's reason to. Okay, so let's look at what's going on now in terms of our local weather conditions. And I'm going to show you Long Island because this is why it's so wonderful to forecast here, where at the moment, the Long Island Expressway, I'm going to draw on this, okay? If you don't live on Long Island, we basically have a highway that divides the island in half from north to south, okay? This is Route 495. So if you're north of the LIE, you can see temperatures are in the mostly upper 80s and lower 90s. If you're south of the LIE, the temperatures start to fall off. Now, there's another highway down here along the South Shore called Sunrise Highway. So if you're south of Sunrise, temperatures are in the 70s. And if you're right on the beaches, since we do have a couple of observations here, it could very well be in the 60s. So that's the kind of day it is, and this is typical of hot days in June for Long Island anyway, where they have a south-facing shoreline. And if you look at these wind barbs, we've got all these south-southwest winds coming in off the water, and water temperatures are not warm. They're in the, not only are they not warm, but they're in the generally mid to upper 50s. Usually by this time of year, we're around 60. So they actually are running a little bit below average. And over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, we've gotten so used to water temperatures here being above average by several degrees. But as I pointed out recently, and there's been a sort of this great normalization of water temperatures all across the Atlantic Ocean. And, for the first time in a long time, you don't see any areas showing +3, +4, or even +5 that used to show up. Now everything is either 0, near normal, +1 degree, or -1 degree. All right, so here are the current conditions. It's upper 80s and low 90s just about everywhere across southern New England, southeastern New York, all across eastern Pennsylvania, middle 80s to low 90s, low 90s across New Jersey, down into the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. So definitely a very hot day. And you can, excuse me, see on the satellite, really not too much going on in terms of clouds. You've got a little disturbed weather in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico. It's not tropical in nature. You've got some showers and storms moving through the upper Midwest, where a severe weather threat was indicated a couple of days ago, so that sort of makes sense. In the meantime, out in the west, this deep trough is setting up in the western part of the United States, and you can see right here this well-defined circulation that is moving southward. You got this deep upper air trough here, so that makes for rather unusual weather for the month of June for this part of the country. And when we look at the radar, at least at the moment, I'm going to freshen this up. There's that little pocket of severe weather, potential severe weather moving across northern Wisconsin into western Michigan. And here we have precipitation, rain showers, and I bet you in some of the higher elevations, I don't know what the snow levels are specifically at this point, but there is going to be some snow in the higher elevations of northeastern California, northwestern Nevada, and maybe even into pockets up into the northern Rockies. Crazy month we're in with this weather pattern. So let's real quick show you what's happening in the east. And I'm going to get out of the Canadian model because it makes me nervous. It's always doing something that's out of whack. So, okay, so here we have everything's still on schedule with regards to what we expect here. Hot through Tuesday, 90 to 95, a little cooler at the shore. And then we have this backdoor front that still remains very, very evident here. That's going to be dropping southward, and we're going to get into a northeast to east wind here for Wednesday and particularly on Thursday. And after that, some showers and storms going into late Friday and for Father's Day weekend. We got a stronger front that's going to be swinging through. So it looks like the weekend is going to be, we're going to be dealing with some showers and thunderstorms, though not an all-day rain. And then it looks like we get a cold front coming through here, at least on the GFS. It looks like it's at our doorstep sometime next Sunday night around midnight or a little after that. And then it goes out and it dries out. We cool off, then it warms up, and then another cold front. So this is the pattern we're in. We're going to see these systems coming in. So if it gets hot, it can't get hot for too long, no more than a day or two. And then we start the process all over again with the cold front and the next air mass. That seems to be the way things are setting up. Out in the west, we'll take a look at the western part of the U.S. and show you what's happening there. So we'll back it up here with the system that's coming in tonight. Let me just make sure I do not. Let me just make sure I got put the rain and frozen up there. There you go. And you can see these little pockets of snow being indicated over parts of northeastern California, northwestern Nevada, right through tomorrow. Then it moves into Idaho and Wyoming and Montana with some heavy rains where it is warm enough for rain. And then that continues into Tuesday, Wednesday. And then we kind of get into a more normalized pattern. Once that trough in the west pulls out, it looks like we're going into typical summertime mode there. So that'll be good. Things will be calming down at least, other than having to deal with the occasional showers. I'm going to just finish up today with the upper air pattern, just to show you one more time the type of upper air pattern that we're dealing with, and the European and the GFS are all pretty much, and the Canadian, all pretty much on the same page. Here's that ridge in the east, that deep trough in the west, and we have that backdoor front. There's this upper air disturbance that swings across southeastern Canada and Newfoundland, so that cools it down Wednesday and Thursday. And here comes the next trough, digging deep into the great South Central Canada and Southeastern Canada and the Great Lakes. This is for next weekend and early next week. And then when that pulls out, there's yet another trough that develops. There's actually some blocking that's attempting to develop here up in the Atlantic near Greenland and Iceland, but it may or may not be successful. But the bottom line is that we continue to favor troughs in the east. And one of the things I want to just point out that if we do get a tropical system that winds up going into the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm just speaking in theory, if you have a trough that's like this, then you could get some of the moisture from that theoretically to move up the East Coast. So that might be one of the things we'll watch for with this tendency for troughing in the east. If you get a trough to set up far enough west, it might bring up eventually some moisture from a tropical system. But we are speaking here theoretically, okay? I just wanted to, sort of put that on the table in case we ever wind up having that forecast issue. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Sunday. If you're in the Northeast, you're enjoying really a summertime day with sunshine and temperatures into the 90s. No thunderstorms to worry about, so enjoy the rest of your afternoon and evening. If you're at the beach, you got the sea breeze, you're okay. And check out all the latest website posts at meteorologistjoechaffee.com. Thank you for being a subscriber to my YouTube channel. If you're new, hit the subscribe button, and then you'll get notified anytime new videos come up. And it's absolutely free to be a subscriber to my YouTube channel. And do participate if you would in the conversation. I'm interested in any comments or questions that you may have concerning weather and climate, or whatever suits your fancy. Or you might even want to ask a question about my cat. Okay, have a great day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.